back to this week's edition of Style and Empowerment Chat with Laura and Friends Radio. We thank you for tuning in on all of our stations all around the world. So we are so excited to welcome this week's guest, acclaimed international photographer, Bjoern Kommerell. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you doing? Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, so much interesting and wonderful stuff to get into today. I was all like, "Oh, I'm talking to a seriously accomplished photographer. I have to make sure my light is right and my makeup." And I was just at the beach last week, and I'm fair, so I got pretty sunburned. So every
Yeah,
day I'm like, "Oh God, I got to be on camera," and I'm talking to a major photographer. My skin's all red. I'm puffy. I'm peeling. So I'm like layering on my moisturizer like 5 times every day.
that's funny. Yeah, yeah. And
Monday, I was.
you know what's so interesting that none of these things really matter to for somebody in their private life. That's the same with the celebrity. When you hang out, you want to talk dog shit with them and not like celebrity stuff, like
Right,
bank robbers don't talk bank robbery stuff. Bank robbers love country songs, or
right.
what I'm saying, like, so it's always it's your mind wants to tell you that this is important, but it isn't actually. It's quite interesting, like it's especially when you work with celebrities, then there is this common behavior, and I would lie if I wouldn't suffer from that too sometimes, that you choose a topic that you think, oh wow, he or she would be so interested in that, right? So you kind of try to please instead of being completely authentically yourself, which
Right.
is the ultimate, because the more you're confidently authentic, you're a great energy to be around with. Like you, for instance, admitting right out the gate, like, oh, well, so that's being authentic. That's great. And that creates a fertile soil for a good, real, authentic conversation rather than this, let's
Weekend
pretend and all
abuse.
that stuff. And you don't get to the real stuff, because the real stuff is not the glossy bling stuff. The real interesting stuff is not the stuff that shines.
Exactly. So, just giving a little bit of your bio to our listeners. So, Bjorn is an internationally published photographer. He has photographed and collaborated with so many greats like Elton John, Jonas Brothers, Justin Bieber, Meghan Markle, before the crown. um,
Yeah.
right? Chadwick Boseman. He also has done movie posters and been published in every major entertainment magazine that you can think of. So we're so excited to get all into that. So, Bjorn, when did you discover your love for photography? And then from there, that this was your passion that you wanted to make your career.
In the dark room of my friend's house, his dad had a dark room, and back in the 70s, like early 80s, I witnessed the process of a picture that was exposed under enlarger, and then the paper went into the developer, and then in the fixer, and then there it was. And I thought that was so magic. I thought, I want to do that magic. That's magic stuff. So it's like, okay, so I need to create something that's worthy of being printed, right?
Right.
And that's basically the origin. If it wasn't for my there were two twins. I went to the high school with them. The family Fuchs, the Foxes, Fuchs, and they had a dark room. Christian and Johannes Fuchs. So basically, those buddies were the reason why I discovered the beauty of the darkroom in photography.
Now, from discovering that initial love for the creativity and just the release of what photography can be in its best form, um, did you professionally train? Did you go to?
Nope.
So you're all
I'm
self-taught.
self-taught. I have a master in
Wow.
economics. I did my master in economics, and then at the very end, in my last 2 months, right before my graduation, I won a photo contest, a readers contest for a German photo magazine, a very established one. And that's the only time I ever submitted a photo. And that photo won the whole thing, and I won money. And I thought, oh God, that's the universe giving me a huge sign here, right? Like, because I wasn't really excited to apply for some boring ass business jobs. And
Right.
God, now you won this money, and I always loved America. I loved the U.S. I was traveling when in between college and grad school, and I came for 6 months to the U.S. and I did great. All the photos I took there always had soul.
Mhm.
And back then, that was like in the 90s, early 90s. It was fun America. Everything was fun. And invent yourself,
Yeah.
reinvent yourself. Who cares what you studied? You can do whatever you want. Nike had the "Just Go For It" campaign, and just
Yes. Just
that
do
American spirit to me, right
it.
on the nose. Just go for it. Just do it. Just do it.
Hmm.
And so that's, I think that was a crucial point in my life, like winning that contest. And then I started and I thought, well, let's just do it. And so I did. And then, I interned. I wouldn't say I'd interned. I would hang out at movie sets and music video sets. I have a
Okay.
friend of
Now,
mine that
how did you get the entry into those environments?
music video, I knew a guy, a great, very accomplished director, Cameron Casey. And
Okay.
this went through because of me playing tennis, and there was an American pro in our tennis club, and he knew him, and that's kind of like, one of those connections through sports. And so I asked him, can I hang out? Can I come to your set? You're shooting in Madrid. And he shot Tears for Fears, for instance. I was still going to college, to grad school. And he goes, yeah, come over, bring your camera. So that was exciting. Oh, I'm flying to Madrid. I didn't get paid, but it was just to be part
About
of
the
it. I was on the
experience.
call sheet. And then I developed the photos and I sent him a box to LA with all these prints that I did in the darkroom. And he said, oh, these are fantastic. You can come to my sets anytime. So then when I moved to the US, he would, then I was on the set of Chaka Khan, of Missy Elliott, Joe, you name it. He was very much sought after. And Maxi Priest. And I just came to every set. Didn't make any money. I just wanted to learn. I wanted to be around that. And I actually did make some money when the record label asked me, like, can we see your photos? Oh, can we buy some of these? I'm like, yeah. So that was very encouraging. And then I also fell in love with the aesthetics of a cameraman on a movie set instead of a photographer.
Mm.
Photographers have flashes and strobes and big and it's this big spectacular when a photo is taken, like push. And the continuous light is so much more fun because you can choose like tuck, 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 tuck. Oh, I just did 10 photos and you didn't even know it.
Mm.
And the light philosophy, I don't know, it turned me on so much. So I love movie look, clearly. I love
Mm-hmm.
how cinematographers treat light. It's so sexy and not as flat. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then on movie sets, well, I just looked up where there's indie movies where I knew they didn't have money for a stills guy. And I
Right.
offered, like, I can do your stills for free. I just want to learn. I still had
Right.
the money from my contest. And I saw that money as my own workshop money. My workshop is to get as much exposure as possible. And you just ask, what's the worst that can happen? They say no, well, then you don't.
Then
But
you go pitch to somebody else.
yeah, and if you learn how to behave on the set, there's a couple of rules, on sets that you
Okay.
don't interfere with the process. So which
Now,
happened to me.
what are some of the rules if you are a photographer on set, and what that process is like, as opposed to just doing a regular photo shoot?
Oh, of course, when the star comes on set and you see, oh, Chaka Khan, now she's all ready to go. Ah, this lighting looks so cool. I want that photo. But guess what? The camera is shooting from the exact same angle. So
Mm,
while they're prepping and just measuring distance and all that stuff, you have to be so fast and so polite.
yeah,
You cannot just stand there like, oh, this is my shoot. No, you're not. When you're the low-hanging fruit on that
you're a
tree
guest.
when you start out as a stills guy on a set, you learn
Yeah,
a ton, but you also, I learned where I'm at, right? Like people yell at you like, hey, go on, get out of frame. I'm like, okay. So then you learn it. But in the meantime, if you're fast, then you might get your shot. And
yeah,
that's the whole game of it. But for me, it was more about learning everything, like the technical side of it. All the names for all the lights and what you do with them, and how it looked later on in the video, and what you can do in the post-production. I think this is so fascinating, and it's a fun way of creating something. Do I invent something that fights cancer? No. But I might entertain you, and you might have a good day. I put a smile on your face because you like yourself in the photograph. Well, then I did at least that.
or
And
you
that's
might
okay.
be unaware that you're lifting up somebody's spirit who's looking at your work and escaping from dealing with a disease, or a
Yeah.
discouraging battle in their life. Because I always say, when people say, well, I'm not curing cancer, it's just fashion, it's just music, it's just this, but I feel that the arts in all its forms is so important, because it's what lifts people's spirits, and it gives them that escapism, fantasy, dreaming, which is so important in all the things that you go through in life,
Mhm.
when life sometimes seems overwhelming, or these things aren't trivial, because it's helping you get through that sad moment sometimes, or just helping you remember a fun time, right? And
Mhm.
looking at that photo can bring back a flood of other things that you were doing at that
Yeah.
time, where you were. So, I beg to differ and play devil's advocate when people like to say, "Oh, fashion's
Yeah.
just trivial. Oh, it's just," it's not. Because at the bottom line is all of the arts. It gives us hope, inspires us, and gives us permission to dream.
Yeah. No, I see it. I mean, I don't know why I said it. It's just like,
Oh, no, but
there is
I
there is
mean,
a
like,
there's a
I
part in
hear
my mind
I
that wants.
hear it a lot. Like, a lot of people will say that, and
Mhm.
I'm like, don't minimize the impact that
Mhm.
other people are having. I kind of, after COVID, I think so many, and during COVID, and I myself had deep loss during that time. And these are times, if you're a person of substance, you kind of stand still and kind of analyze, like, is what I'm doing, does it matter? Does it have worth? Should I keep doing what I'm doing? Like after 9/11, even, I remember all the talk shows were saying, do we go back on air? Are we just idiots? All this catastrophe just
Yeah.
happened.
Mhm.
Is what we're doing even matter? But I feel like times like this is when all of those art forms matter even more so, because you can look at a beautiful photo, or a fashion magazine article, and it
Yeah.
can say, you know what, things were better, things can get better. Let me just read this Cindy Crawford article right now for a minute, and just kind of escape
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
recharge my spirit, and then go back to the heavy stuff that I'm dealing with.
Yeah. Oh, that's very well said. No, and it is true, but that's the sometimes the danger of, especially in our information age, because we get wind of so much
Mhm.
stuff. Like, oh, look what this guy
Yeah,
did. Look what David Yarrow does. That's amazing. And, oh,
right.
and what are you doing? You're not. Oh, and then I feel bad about myself. It's like that
Mhm.
kind of FOMO stuff, or it's like, ah,
Right.
we achieved all those things and inspired way more people. I'm like, well, but then, you know, I did something yesterday and that was good. And so
Right.
it's even if you're not like the number one in the world with who
Exactly.
we compare I myself all the time, then uh, and that's okay too. So deep inside, I do agree with you, even though there's moments where I catch myself being very judgmental
Right. And
and not.
then I mean, that's a human condition. It's easy to do, especially when you're in industries that are organically competitive.
Yeah.
You are doing it for the passion, but at the same point, everybody wants to feel their work is recognized and valued. You're
Mhm.
naturally competitive with your like us driven, goal orientated people who are, well, I want to be the best. I want to, right? But it's a slippery slope, not getting caught too deep into that. Like my
Yeah.
dad used to always say, in life, there's always going to be someone who's better, quote, has more, but there's always going to be someone who has less, and you could be that person that person is looking up to as their benchmark to aspire to, and you don't even realize it. Well, you're saying, well, I want what that, but I want to be here, I want to, how come they, so like being comfortable in your own lane, is that's something I battle with too. Like you're like, well, I want to reach this goal and that and this and that, but at
You
the
know what
same
I
point,
think in this context? It's what we really want is the emotion, is to
Mhm.
experience an emotion. So people want a big house, or people want to have a big success, and they want to win a prize, and but they expect and they don't think enough about actually the emotion that they want to feel once they have it. And I think
Mhm.
that emotion is at your disposal already right now. And from what I've gathered so far in all those like manifest your life kind of messages and wisdoms, that this is kind of the core, that emotion that
Mhm.
you want to build up your emotional bank account, your heart account, so to say, not your bank account, your heart account. Everybody who dies, what do they talk about? About oh, I shouldn't have done all these jobs. I should have hung out with my kid and showed him way more how much I love him. And those,
Mhm.
and when I read about that or hear interviews or see them on YouTube or something, and I see like, okay, that's where it's going. It's
Right.
going to the count, to emotional account in your heart. So you do a photo shoot, and I'm telling you, there's some photo shoots with Elton John, for instance, like, oh yeah, it's going to be so badass, and he was in a shitty mood and whatnot, and I had my
Mm.
in the
And
end,
that's your
5 minutes.
moment to get it. That's
Yeah,
your moment,
it
your
is.
slice of time.
It is. It did happen and everything. Okay, I brought it home, but the
Right.
experience, right, wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's and in the end, I think why do we do what we do here on the planet is because you want to experience something as you do it.
Right.
So that is like your, that kick that you get out of, oh, that emotion that you feel. Let's say in your case, you're validated and people listen to you and you inspire them. You inspired me so much. Oh, what emotion do you feel right now when somebody tells you that at the bakery? So now this is it. This is the core, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the real payoff. If you get some fashion company give you 20 grand or something, okay, that's money, but it
That's
doesn't have
cool.
emotion. Maybe you're happy for a few hours and then you find out you have to pay taxes on it. Oh, there's 10 grand gone. So now you're less happy already at 20 grand.
Right.
And, and loss aversion kicks in and all that stupid stuff.
Right.
And I think focus on that emotion that oh, how does it feel to feel validated or to feel happy or to feel loving. Now being loved is one thing, but I think for me the ultimate is actually the lover. So
Yeah.
that you're the ultimate, that you're, oh, I love this moment, I love being here right now, I love this, that, like, I love this right now. That is like that romantic now lover is kind of my idea.
Mm-hmm.
And in moments when I really am that oh, I love now, then life does get a different flavor and people around you feel it. And it's not my intent. My intent is not the others at the moment. My intent is just to visit that little river of love, now jump in it. Now is good. It's the only access point. We know that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's and it's a spark, and when others jump on it, and then she gets the
Then that magic energy
yep,
happens.
it's kind of a seed which I discovered. So in times of doubt, just I just make the decision. I am the lover of the now. I just decide to and just go for it and fake it until it really kicks in. I
Yeah.
tell you, no, I'm loving the now right now. Hey, you don't really, come on, let's do it. Let's do it. And it's like you go for a walk and then you start walking. And when you walk, all of a sudden you are walking and you're on a walk. And the emotions are kind of the same way.
Now, you touched on a very intriguing point. Your photography is just so fantastic, and what
Thank
really
you.
stands out to me when I was looking through all your work is you do see like emotion and texture from the subject and the way you do your lighting and everything. So, can you talk a bit about and also give some advice, like when you're on sets, whether you're doing a headshot or a magazine or different promotional things, what is your process of connecting with the subject, getting that comfort and collaborative to then create that magic, and then also when you're in a situation like you were with Elton John with a difficult kind of moody or it's just not clicking, how you get past that to get into the zone of the good collaboration and making your subject feel comfortable and kind of let it all out so you can get that good
Mhm.
piece of art.
Well, that's a social skill, right? That's like the soft skill that I wish there could be a book or a book of recipes, but there isn't because every case is different. Every person is different on every different day. There's nothing
Hmm.
really something to hold on to other than, of course, my intent is that you build up the person that they feel like $1,000,000 in front of my lens.
Hmm.
So there's many ways to go there, but I use, if I'm really honest, I'm totally using NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. So because our brains respond to when they hear to the phrase, for instance, you are so good, Laura, you're so good. Even though it's just a test, right?
Right.
But so what I do is I tell, for instance, imagine you're at a poker table and you're 10 years old and your dad looks at you and like, God, you're good. Hell, you are good. And so it's a fictitious, it's a fiction.
Sure.
But I bring in the words because so now you hear the words that you're good, Laura, and then you're such a kid and you were so confident and that was fun and the confidence and the more you use a word, this is how we can easily kind of not hypnotize but kind of influence each other by the use
Hmm.
of certain words that have a positive power in it, a positive vibration, and then you'll see you use that over time, not that the person knows what you're doing, but and it's a polite thing to do. I'm just like a coach. I want to build you up.
Hmm.
In 30 minutes, you have to feel like you're Cleopatra and give with that power. And so creating these imaginary pictures is one tool of it. Or I describe to them like, that was a photo shoot. This guy was so confident, was so fun. Jack Wagner. Yeah, Melrose Place. Yeah, so good looking. You know what he did? He was so relaxed and confident. It was so fun for me to shoot him. Just by telling you that story, right? Now you're like, oh, what did he do? I want to be easy to photograph. So what did he do? Like, yeah, and I acted out for them. Like, yeah, he just looks in the camera and just, he didn't even change a bit. It's just communicating with me. And he didn't do a phase with a rehearsed version of himself, thinking that this is more attractive than his real self, which most of
Hmm.
the time isn't not the thing. When you stay authentic,
Right.
that's sexier. So that is one thing.
Hmm.
And I always tell also my understudies that important is how people feel in your presence. That's what they remember. They don't remember what you told them. They don't remember your stories and all those things. They don't remember the name of your pet or what happened to it, but they do remember how they felt while they were with you. And you, I'm sure you had dinners. We're like, oh, that was a fun night out. What did you talk about? No clue. But I know
Yeah, good time.
Yeah. So that's an important aspect to specifically make sure that your team, and even if the team is just two, if you have one team partner, that they feel confident and good, and that you, in some of them, maybe they need to be rerouted when people come and bitch.
Right.
Like, negative bigots. And when somebody says, I don't like this, I'm like, the universe doesn't know the word no. So whatever, if you say like, I don't like money problems, well, you talk about money problems, so they will get more in your life. So what do you want in abundance or whatnot? Trick them with questioning into a corner where they talk about the positive, what they want. When they come like, I hate photo shoots. So many people come and like, I hate my picture taken. I'm like, okay.
But you're a musician and a movie star, so they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah. So it's an irony to it. But then I say, but you love being in front of a motion picture camera, right? And they say, yeah, movies I love. Good. My camera films. And I'm just filming snippets with you here. Not other than any director who would pitch you to his writing partner. It's like I'm just filming here a little bit, or maybe a photo, maybe a film, same thing. So if you can do something for a director in a scene where there's no dialogue and you look out the window, maybe you look at a little kid and watch it on the playground. Such unspectacular stuff. Maybe we do that today. How's that? And I play some music, and that's even nicer than on a movie set. You don't get to hear the music. So I play some music for you. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. Good. Oh, that's wonderful. And then I give them little tricks, for instance, because sometimes the mind wants to wander off and like, I get my photo taken, and then you get this one.
And your mind goes off and drifts off.
Okay. So the best trick that I discovered myself when my buddy was shooting me. So my friend said, like, we were drinking together, and he picks up my camera and is like, hey, I'm Bjoern now, and then I felt that he liked something. He said, hey, relax. And I know relax most of the time doesn't work. But then I saw at the glass of the lens reflections. And I thought, let me entertain myself with these reflections, because he wants me to hold in this position. So that I don't feel awkward, I need something to do. And so what I did was I was studying the reflection on the glass. Now it changed a little bit, and I thought, oh, look, that's the light behind me. And so all of a sudden I settled into a confident state of mind that was awesome.
And
so for anybody, when somebody holds a lens in your face, but who's benevolent, who wants to take a good photo of you, and then if you just take a deep breath and just study the glass of the surface and see what you see there. And even if it's on an iPhone, it's like, oh, look, there's 3 little lenses. Isn't that interesting? And then you're interested in what you're looking at. And by being interested, you're interesting. So that's my philosophy. You're interesting when you're interested. So smiling photos are very easy, but they're also kind of flatter in terms of dimensions, because how many adjectives do you have to describe that? He's happy, he's upbeat. But serious can have so many different facets. And in order to create a facet with depth, those kind of tools come in very handy. So if I was to take a photo of you and you're like, yeah, happy photos, I have enough. I would like to have a photo that transports a bit more depth of my personality. But okay, well, and then see, music is one thing. It's wonderful. Good soundtracks are emotionally so powerful because they're vibration and they go in your system, and all of a sudden you do go with the flow of the music, and I can direct your emotion with the music easily. And then my words are kind of like it's like the music is a red carpet and my words walk on top of it, right? But you're already on the red carpet. You're in that emotional, like you hear some sentimental song, very slow, and then I tell you a little imaginary story and whatnot, and all of a sudden my words become almost like get hypnotic power because of the music. And yeah, and then then little tricks like study the glass reflection or something, and those are like one possible scenario how it comes out. But this, in general, you're interesting when you're interested, helps. So find something that you look at that you think is interesting. Anthony Hopkins, for instance, my buddy worked with him on Westworld, and said, like, when Hopkins, sometimes he looks out of the window and looks so deep, man, you think, oh, this guy's thinking about life and it all and philosophy. And so my buddy asked him, so what were you actually thinking when you looked out the window? It was a great take. And he went, what was counting the poles on the horse fence? They're exactly 21. So that anecdote shows me that the camera, sometimes the camera knows that you're active in your mind, but it doesn't know what.
Mm.
So you might contemplate about your last diarrhea encounter, but the camera doesn't know that.
Right.
The camera sees you digging in your memory. When was that? So it sees, now it sees your mental activity, your cognitive action. What action? That's your secret. And that's how you can sometimes, if you're not in, if you're not there or forever, for whatever reason, those are little like crutches that can help.
Now, Bjoern, you specialize in headshots. So you do two different types. And for our listeners who don't know, if you could kind of break down the difference between a cinematic headshot and I guess, right, and a business headshot, and also what you would say is a good headshot. Like when someone who's paid for and is looking, what is a good headshot?
Okay, let's start with the last question. Good headshot is a photo that doesn't show any pretense.
Okay.
When you see somebody pretending or posing, not good. Inauthentic, doesn't have power. So no pretense is the most important ingredient for a good portrait in my eyes. Because like, oh, that's him, right? He doesn't do anything. It's just what a lot of people say, like, oh, shoot my essence. I'm like, I don't know what your essence is. Like at 3 o'clock you wore a bitch, at 4 o'clock you're happy, and at 5 o'clock you're depressed, at 7 you're stoked. What in the hell is your essence of that? That's a tough one. But I can make choices of some essence, like, and so when there's no pretense, that would be that answer. And then so the question before, again, help me out, what was it?
Yes, what is the difference between a cinematic
headshot?
headshot?
A cinematic headshot. Well, as it says, so I always loved the look of movie lighting. And oftentimes when you shoot somebody in that visual context, oftentimes they look off camera and they're backlit and there's a lot of shadows in the face, which, there's a term called Rembrandt lighting. Okay. And that's kind of like the beginning of it all. Like you don't even need like hundreds of lights. Sometimes you can do beautiful things just with one light source. And if you place it right, it's the shadows that are right. Whereas there's other photographs that, let's say when it's for a commercial use or you're a realtor. If you're a realtor in New York City and you sell $10 million mansions, well, my movie still probably will not do you a great favor. So then I would choose a different, more glamorous context where I would use what's called plus lighting. So plus lighting is there's hardly any shadows in the face. Right? And so when you introduce shadows and maybe the half of the face is in the shadow, that would be called minus. Then you go more towards minus lighting. Minus lighting when there's no light source behind the lens. And so cinematic really is quite simple. You look at any movie poster, like I would say 90% of them have a certain visual identity. That you look at them and you're like, oh, that's a movie poster, that's a movie star, that's Black Panther, that's whatnot. They shoot a little bit. uphill, so the camera's a little bit lower than the object, so you kind of look up to them. They become like idols and icons. Tom Cruise is not very tall, but when you photograph him up there, then he does look really tall. And those
Yeah.
little things, those are the components that are part of the more cinematic approach. And also that you allow, let's say, some blurry stuff in the background or some blurry stuff in the foreground. That's called a dirty shot. That's those are, for me, the funnest. Which doesn't mean that I don't enjoy other things too, but it kind of ended up being my shtick. That when I clicked the most, I'm like, it looks like a still of a scene. And oftentimes it's when the person doesn't necessarily have to look at the lens. In my early years, when I started, like in the late 90s, people said, "Oh, you cannot photograph people looking off camera." I'm like, why? Why wouldn't I? It looks cool. No, but it's unorthodox. And I said, well, but
because it hasn't been done before.
On the movie poster, they do it, and they use the movie poster to spend millions and trillions of dollars to promote a movie with such a visual and such lighting. Like, why wouldn't that work for you when we advertise a character that you can do for the next David Fincher movie, so that his caster calls you in? And so and then so many, you have these mediocre opinions. They're like, no, we can't use that. You cannot look off camera. You cannot do blurry things. You cannot do shadows in the face. No, you cannot smoke. And like, okay, we're smoking, we're looking off camera, we're blurring. It's like we do everything that they say we shouldn't do because I think it looks cool.
Yeah.
And at that moment, when I made that choice,
and it turned out fantastic.
Management in Hollywood back in the day, 20 years ago, called Handprint Entertainment. Back in the day, they had J-Lo, they had Madonna, they had Will Smith. I mean, it was Benny Medina and David Goulart, and they cornered it. David Goulart was J-Lo's guy, and Benny Medina was Will Smith's guy. And then they buddied up with Al Honorado, who was the head of the Casting Association of America. Anyhow, they had Nicole Kidman.
And then Benny eventually became J-Lo's guy too.
It's ridiculous. And they said, we love your stuff. We've got this guy, Johnny Knoxville. We want you to shoot him. We got this guy, Mike Epps. We want you to shoot him. Because we like your stuff. You're doing your own thing. So here's that kind of how Arnold Schwarzenegger in his famous inspirational speak, like, forget the naysayers, right? And when they tell you can't do it and you do it, that means you're the first one doing it. And that's kind of a little bit the thing that, which is right.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, okay, if somebody says, like, you're not supposed to do it. Oh, interesting. Okay, why? Because they say, who is they anyways? And most of the time, when you look into
at the end of the day, they aren't the ones with the camera. They aren't the ones with the talent to do it. So I always say, stay out of people's pot. Suggestions are fine, but don't try to control the artwork because, can you do it yourself? No, you don't have that same creative eye. And, when you're doing things different, there's always those naysayers, and there's always what I call that like beautiful moment where you decide, I'm gonna trust my own gut, and I'm just gonna jump and see where it goes. Because if you don't have that courage to jump, you're blocking your own creative flow, and you can't be so hung up in what are they gonna think? Will they like it? Well, you're thinking in a visionary way.
You have to like it. You have to. That's so bad. And there's no song. Tell me one song, one painting, one poem, one movie that everybody loves.
Right.
Tell me a favorite book, and I show you online. There's somebody who says, "Oh, that's a shit book."
Thanks.
One of my favorite movies, Fight Club, got booed out when it first premiered. There's awesome stories from Brad Pitt and Ed Norton sitting in the screening room in the back, and the whole audience like, "Fuck this, boo!" And they're smoking weed, and so like, dude, the best stuff we will have ever done. Absolutely certain that this was the best thing they've ever done. And in my eyes, it is. It's legendary. It's iconic. But the audience don't like, you can't go by what, if you only try to please everybody, you set yourself up for an impossible mission and you'll be depressed and you can never fulfill it. But you can fulfill what you like. And that when you look at a photo or you look at what you've created, your painting or your pottery or whatever it is, I'm like, dude, I think it's cool. And you go to bed and you look at it and you enjoy it. And that counts for so much. Then your frequency, your energy is so nice. And then you're a nice person to be around with, compared to somebody who tries to fill others and doesn't achieve it and is full of self-hatred.
Yeah.
Well, that person is on a different frequency level. Question if that's so fun to be around him. So I think, just bring light to this.
True. Well, we're going to take a quick musical break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about the creative process, all the things I'm always curious about, like how you choose sets and wardrobe and all those cool things that create some of these iconic images. So keep it locked into Style and Empowerment Chat with Laura and friends. And we'll be right back after this. Stretch break.
So my mic's not on.
Oh, I hear you.
Oh yeah, you hear me, but good. Yeah, I pulled my lower back. That's why I'm standing up. I can't even sit.
Oh Lord.
Telling you, like an hour ago, I was at the doctor's.
Yeah, we're on a musical break, so if you want to take a second and sit down and rest your back.
Sitting's not good. Actually, standing is better than sitting.
Okay.
I'm gonna sit down right now. Luckily, I'm on vacation right now. I'm at my parents' place. They were very cute. They came with me to the chiropractor. My parents are almost 90. It's very cute.
So you're on location in Germany right now?
Yep, I'm in my hometown.
Nice. You can mix a little business with family and.
There's no business here. I just do vacation. I did so much business. So I've worked from January straight to no vacation until now. So like I need 5 weeks off, no work.
Nice.
I guess my buddy said then enough, so now I need to shut down. So if you pull your lower back, you cannot do much.
Well, you need that refresh and reconnection time,
Yep.
And I think it's so important, especially when you're in any kind of creative field. You have to take that time where you just kind of go inward and just have some calm around you. Whatever that thing is for you that fills your spirit back up. Because, that creates a block with your creative juices when you're overly stressed and worry and anxiety about different things. Or we tend to overthink things,
Absolutely, yeah.
And sometimes you can overanalyze things so much. We could do one more song and get in your head about it,
Yeah.
I do find that sometimes you do that, where you could be looking at all your takes from a shoot and think, well, maybe I should do it this way. Maybe I should do it that way. And with photography, there's so many different options of what you can do in the post edit. Do you find like sometimes you might have to discipline yourself not to overthink? Too much?
Overthinking there is a point. Like you have to really see like what is enough. To have a game plan, that's good. But if you're over planning the game, then the game is not that fun anymore.
Yes. And I like to say that it's finding the balance between preparation but not being so in the prep that you lose the natural organic, that
Yeah,
magic, that chemistry that automatically happens once everybody's like in the pocket and feeling relaxed and you're just having that pinball back and forth, which is a lot about what you were talking about with connecting to your subjects,
yeah,
uh, and the comfort level is, you have to be present but not like that's something that I always intrigues me with modeling and even like actors and artists who are in front of the lens, finding that sweet spot in between you're thinking what you're doing and what the photographer wants from you, but
yeah,
then you're kind of stepping outside of that so you're not so stiff and in it,
yeah.
because it really is a balance.
Yeah, what Ethan Hawke said in an interview, and I love that. And he doesn't do much lines with actors prior to the scene. He likes the
Mhm.
spontaneity that happens when people get into it fresh, and
Yeah,
and take one is most likely it's never the perfect one. It's like kind of like the 80% one, but
right.
probably the best out of the bunch because there's more life and more spontaneity in it.
hmm
Yeah.
And I'm sure some of your best shots come when you're in between loading the film or the subject's kind of
Oh
not thinking
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
you're
It's that
not thinking that
trickery.
you're aiming the lens and then in a quick second you get a shot. You're like, we've been working all day and this is the shot.
Yeah, that's actually something interesting for your listeners, to be honest. Like that's because that's an interesting subject. The when to uh yeah, when to the little question. I have a coaching. How much longer do we do? Like what is our deadline? Like
Like what, like 10 minutes?
okay, cool,
Yeah.
easy. Awesome. Good.
Oh,
I didn't know. Then I can tell her like yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, my back. I'm moving my
oh,
legs. You don't know that I'm moving my legs the whole time while we're talking because
oh,
I can't
geez.
sit I can't sit still at the moment. It's painful.
Oh.
I feel like I
We're
feel like
gonna
a
come.
granddad.
Oh, we're gonna come back up right now.
Yeah.
And welcome back to Style and Empowerment Chat with Lauren Friends. So we're just here chopping it up with acclaimed international photographer, videographer, Bjoern Kommerell. So, and in our break, we were talking about the intriguing topic of sometimes finding your best shots, capturing your best shots when the subject thinks that you're not photographing them.
Yeah, I think that's super important. It's like I compare it to music. In music, there's an expression called syncopation.
Mhm.
Syncopation is not when you're on the beat. It's ba, a ba, da, a ba, da, so when you're a little bit off the beat. So that's why I tell people I like that analogy. It's like it's visual syncopation. So it's the little
Mhm.
moment before and a little after that's most likely more interesting rather than when the person says, I'm ready now. And then you have pretense because they're pretending to be
Right.
ready. But actually more interesting is when they're not. Like we see that a lot in documentaries when they already let the camera run and the person is fixing the mic and they're looking around. And that is great B-roll material to fill in for the documentary so that they get to feel the person how they are when they're not aware of that the camera's running.
Right.
And that also goes for the after, like when you, let's say you crack somebody up with a good joke and they're laughing and you made fun of yourself or whatever, but you give them a chance to really laugh. And when they come back, there's a relaxation because the diaphragm massaged the entire body. And all of a sudden they're so much more relaxed. So
Mhm.
laughter like is so powerful because people hold tension in here, right? In their solar plexus. And once you when you go like So yeah, that muscle, that solar plexus muscle, is working active. So that's releasing stress and stuck energy. And then right after, then you can start like going for it and see where they go. Then they're more playful. Then they're not trying to like play safe the whole time.
Mhm.
But that little moment before and after is a big thing.
Now, what's your process in deciding what your set's going to be like, maybe the wardrobe, the look of the shoot, what lighting you're going to use?
That some clients, when they have for editorial stuff or publicity photos, they already have like certain ideas.
Okay.
And then I feed into it, and then
Mhm.
you send each other mood board with other visuals that you know see online, what other people have created, which there's nothing wrong with it. The best photographers in the world, every Mario Testino does that. When they look for certain style, they look online and collect a couple of photos as an inspiration for that,
Mhm.
and then you see where it's going. You know, for my own projects, when it's just for me, myself, and I just want to, you know, play around with a new camera and film something. And then we started like, Toulouse-Lautrec paintings and, you know, French brothels in back in the day in terms of colors and fishnet stocking. And when you see the final result, you wouldn't be able to tell that, but you need
Mm.
something to start off with as an inspiration. To wing the whole thing sometimes is tough. I can wing a portrait session for a close-up where, you know, you just see the background barely. It's maybe white or gray or, you know, whatever, something. That's an easy thing. Then it's
Right.
more really about the lighting for the subject. That's the most important thing. You know, you light the subject, that the subject looks intriguing, and you know, you want to look at the photo. And that's something tough to teach
Yeah.
because everybody's different. And
Right.
and every time when I try to come up with a rule, I find out the rule doesn't work for every case.
Mm.
That's really just a feeling thing, right? That's
Instinct.
yeah. And other than that, like said, sometimes I like improv stuff. Recently, I had a great shoot with Veronica Falcon. She's shooting Ozark right now. She's going to be in what's it called? The Rock film Jungle, not Jungle Fever, Jungle
Jungle
Cruise.
Book?
Jungle
Jungle Cruise?
Cruise. She's in Jungle Cruise, and she was the one of the main leads in the first couple of seasons of Queen of the South.
Mm.
Amazing, like amazing actress, and she also directed a lot of theater, so she knows what she wants. So she comes with her wardrobe, and then I'm just throwing in stuff like, oh, okay, now red, and switch it, and then I have my assistants move stuff around, and I kind of dig it when you don't have time to overthink it. And during the break,
Right.
we were talking about overthinking and the danger of such. That the push in the cold water can sometimes be very helpful in terms of creativity.
Mm.
You come up with a rough idea, but we'll play around, and then boom, you don't even have time to think. You just react intuitively, and I love those moments too. I kind of like the challenge of that. It's
Yeah.
dangerous. If you don't have any game plan whatsoever, you can also
Crash and
create a
burn.
lot of stress for yourself and the others. But that kind of shoot, I dig. And both people, I think art is about discovery and surprise. So if you
Mhm.
already know what you're painting, what's the good in painting it, right? That's the
Mm.
Picasso quote that I loved. So if it's already laid out, like in advertising, you know, you have a layout, everything, and everybody, it's just a very slick execution of what the plan is, and that's nice.
Mhm.
But there's not much room for the surprise. And fun is when you just at the end like, oh, no, why don't we do this? Oh yeah, that's a great idea. And so that enthusiasm that goes through your bloodstream while you're discovering something that you didn't think of before, that surprise energetically is visible in a photo a lot of times. And
Yeah.
when subject and photographers are like, I want you to do this. Ah, that's great. Yeah, let's grip this one. Let's take the cowboy hat and the gun and the cigarette or whatever. It doesn't make sense, but it's fun. Okay, let's do it.
Right.
And then maybe that's the photo that ends up on their fridge and everywhere. And you know, that's happens quite frequently. Yeah.
Now you've had the pleasure of working with so many icons and just pop culture influencers. One of the people I wanted to take a moment to talk about was your experience working with Chadwick Boseman on 42, and I believe did you also work with him on with Black Panther as well?
No,
And
like these were all like separate productions. I do my own. I work on my productions. My
right,
productions like
exactly.
so that's the Bjoern Kommerell shoot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, he is just he was such an inspiring person. Talking about authentic confidence, what I talked earlier about, that somebody comes in a room and does not pretend to be somebody different, but really knows himself and is fine with who he is. And that creates an aura that is very powerful.
Mm.
And that's something I guess that parts of it come with your upbringing, I guess. How you grow up, that you come to that state of mind that you're fine, you're good. We all have our insecurities, but when it comes to the moment of, okay, now we have to rise to the occasion. Oh, come on, let's do it. With the confidence, we'll get something beautiful done. And I got it, I think, over the years because I know, after all, I always come up with something. So that when a client is insecure, that I can always say like, oh, we'll come up with something, don't worry. And Chad didn't need that. He had that confidence in himself. There's such a nobility about this guy that is just very inspiring. And then he brought his clothes. He had, he's open for suggestions and you play, but he is the perfect example of the perfect subject to shoot, who is not looking to pose. He's just staying present with you in the conversation.
Mm.
And is genuinely interested. So here's the next element that we talked before as well. You're interesting when you're interested. He makes a clear choice to be interested in you and what you say. So there's some people who are not, can't concentrate for 10 seconds. And while you're answering, they look at their cell phone. Would never happen to him.
Mm.
And that's, I think, is a very important quality to have. Like I need to work on that myself, and I feel inspired by people who I meet in person that have that quality. And also people I hear of, like Bill Clinton is known to be like the best listener in the universe. Like every person that
Being
works
very
in
present.
Washington will tell you, this man pans out everything. There can be Oprah Winfrey and who else next to him, he doesn't care. If he talks to that baker from Iowa, he truly listens to him.
Mm.
And does not pants everything else out. And I think that's such a, it's the gold that we have in our hearts, is our undivided attention. What do you look for your parents, from your dad? What do you want? What does the child want from the dad? The undivided attention. Please listen to me. Don't look at the phone while you look. Do I really matter to you? You show me that by really listening to me.
Mm.
I get your undivided attention. It's your goal. That's what everybody's after. That's what Instagram is after.
Right.
Instagram wants your undivided attention. Every cell phone and whatnot, and every advertiser knows it too. Right? And
Right.
so to make a conscious choice to be a Chad Boseman / Bill Clinton, that you really genuinely stay there.
Mm.
Don't like a little puppy dog turn around and look for the next shiny thing.
And
which
I think too, being present is really such a key to making an organic connection.
absolutely, and if it is a photo shoot or an interview or a brainstorming, it doesn't matter. It translates to any creative outlet.
Hmm.
So it's really a component or a mind ingredient, so to say, that
Right.
is so powerful and helpful.
Well, Bjorn, you have just shared so much of enlightening and inspirational content with us and given us just a wonderful view behind the scenes of the magic of photography and and the entertainment industry. Thank you just for all these amazing stories. Uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, if our listeners and viewers want to find you on social media and in business, where should they go?
The easiest one, because my name is really difficult to spell, but if you start, if you spell Bjorn with OE, then you're off to a good result
Right.
in your search. But if you look for BK headshots on Instagram, for instance, and on and on the web, like if you just Google it, you'll find me. If it's and BK are my initials, so it's not Burger King, by the way.
Right.
I came up with that name 20 years ago. It sounds so corny now, but now I'm in all the search engines, and if I change it, then what am I doing? So I'm also BK Headshots on Instagram, and I think that is I like Instagram because it's such a fun search engine. It became such a powerful search engine.
Yeah.
I look somebody up. I'm most likely I'm going to the Instagram to find out, because with the highlights and the stories, you see a little bit, you get the energy of the person. So yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, everybody go follow Bjorn. He's just such a fantastic artist and human being. I look forward to one day our paths crossing. Thank you so much for
Absolutely. I thank you.
sharing your energy and creativity and your positive spirit with us today.
You're awesome. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
Likewise.
Okay. You take
Bye.
care. Ciao.
Ciao. So we're